what is assessment itself? Here you can see a number of words that are related or the familiar with the assessment, that are related to assessment, and I want you to make up a sentence or to describe what is assessment itself using these provided words. So I want to ask you to be a bit active and describe the word assessment using these words. Who can describe? Any volunteers?
Wants to have.
Yeah.
Yes. So assessment is assessment should match with learning outcomes, which is given in curriculum beforehand, and it should be measurable.
Okay, nice. Thank you, Dilrabo. Anyone else? Can you describe the word assessment using these words, the provided words? Like outcomes, goals, results, programs, progress as well. So, okay, by charging you with this task, I wanted to measure your, how to say, speaking skills and your knowledge. How do you understand the assessment? Moving to the next slide, I want to explain you what is assessment, dear participants. So, assessment is the process of evaluating and measuring an individual achievements, typically done with assessment tools. Sometimes we are doing with the assignments, tests, some kind of examination. So, and the assessment is one of the important part of our teaching. So there are some types of learning assessment. They could be diagnostic assessment, formative assessment, or summative assessment. Diagnostic assessment is this when we assess the students' weaknesses, strengths, and knowledge, skill, in what level they are. In formative assessment, we usually assess the student's performance during the instruction. For an example, you can say, you can provide them with the instruction of any task, and then you may ask, do you understand the instruction? Who can repeat this instruction one more time? So here you are assessing them in a formative way. And another way of assessment, the type of assessment is summative assessment. That is measure a student's achievement at the end of the instruction. Let's say that you are that you have already explained the instruction and you ask your learners to repeat the instruction. So in order to be sure that they understand it, it is, as I mentioned, if it is the formative instruction, after doing that task, when you are assessing them according to their products, let's say how they perform, how they how they do the task, this assessment, we may say the summative assessment. So for the another types of assessment is non-reference assessment and the creation reference assessment. So in non-reference assessment, we compare a student's performing against the other students, and in the creation references assessment, we measure the student performance against the goal-specific tasks. So, and the last one is the interim benchmark assessment. In this assessment, we evaluate the students' performance at and how they frequently at the end of any period, at the end of the any kind of courses, let's say. So, and if I give some examples for formative and the summative assessment, here I want to say that in formative assessment we can assess our learners in class discussion, let's say, when we are discussing something. But in summative assessment, we sometimes assess when we assess it there as a final at the end of the course and like a final exam. or midterm exam. This kind of exams are considered as a summative assessment. Here you can see informal and formal way of assessment, like informative when you are explaining some kind of task and you say any questions to be sure that they understand you. Here you are assessing them informally, and this is like a formative assessment. And when after the explanation any kind of topic, you immediately charge your learners with any kind of quiz. This is the formal assessment, but it also considered as a formative assessment as well. And also the exams, the final exams, as I mentioned, it is the formal assessment, but it is summative way of assessment. And here you can see the chat with the instructor. Also, it is summative assessment, but it is informal considered. So moving further to the next slide. I want to ask a question. Have you ever had students looking at you like this when you're explaining an assignment? So here, Ms. Yokut will continue why the students looking at us in this case, in this way, and what is the reason of it. So Ms. Yokut, it's your turn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hushnama. And this is a question for everybody. Have you ever had your students looking at you like this when you explain an assignment? And what do you think? Why they look at you in the following way?
If they don't understand the instructions, they may look like this.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing, they misunderstood the instruction. Yes, you are right. And be active, dear participants. So, Nilufar, you're totally right. The first reason they misunderstood the instructions as well. Anyway, if we don't clear assessment criteria, we will have this kind of faces so often. Thus, we need to think about, like, while designing our task, our learning goals with our task and with our assessment criteria should match. And otherwise, our students will look at us every time in the following way. It doesn't matter how much time will you explain your students your task. And here I would like to clarify and to say the best thing is to present the clear assessment is creating a rubric. And I would like to clarify what is a rubric. A rubric is a guideline for rating students' performance. A rubric is scoring tool that lists the criteria of what counts for a piece of work. And it's an evaluation tool that describes quality of work on a range from excellent to poor. And it's, of course, it's a communication tool. Why it's communication tool? It will kind of give a good communication between us and the student. So if we create good rubric, we will have a good communication between us and the students. And the students will have a clear understanding about what things they need to consider while preparing their performance. And I can bring like a great samples of rubrics, which is CFR or IELTS or TOEFL. So they present their rubrics beforehand. And usually rubrics are good for subjective assessment, not for objective. Why subjective? Because objective assessment is always already objective with clear answers. So that means it's our reading and speaking, which is our receptive skills. Sorry. So when we receive, we need to present comprehensive activities, and of course, in these comprehensive activities, our teachers, so our assessors already present their exact answers with exact choices, and thus they are objective. There is no need to check them. There is we may put it to the computer, or we may just compare students' answer with right answers. But for subjective assessment, which is good for productive skills, which is writing and speaking, it's better to create a rubric. And so what is rubric? We have already clarified. And of course, there are important elements of creating rubrics. First of all, we need to create criteria. what things we are going to measure or what things we are going to take into consideration. So our criteria should match with our learning goals again, I want to stress. And the levels of performance. Levels of performance are also kind of known as a rating scale. And descriptors. So descriptors are good and which and also really helpful to clarify what kind of skills should be presented in this or that performance. So, to continue, I would like to present the tips of good rubrics. Good rubrics do what you want them to do. Assess what you want to assess. And are pleasing to look at and are easy on the eyes. Are clear to everyone and are not too big or small for their purposes. And again, I would like you to ask to bring a scene or kind of picture of a CFR band descriptor. So they give rubrics for starting from A1 to C2, and they again just divide this rubrics vertically into mini criteria like speaking, reading, listening, and writing, or the can do abilities as a 21st century, like the community building, the interactivity, and so on. So, and as we look we can clearly understand what abilities are good for this or that level, or starting from A1 to C2. And the same rubric was presented, is presented actually by IELTS exam assessors or examiners, where they just present the band descriptives from 1 to 9. And students' ability divided into 4 criteria accuracy, comprehension, fluency, and flexibility, if I'm not mistaken. No, task response, sorry. And they, of course, they check it for several times. They were kind of experienced it several times, thus they are reliable, valid, fair, and completely connected to what you are assessing. And everybody understands the same thing when they read one, but they cannot, sometimes they can be scary, because we may think there is a big difference between band 5 and band 6 in IELTS band descriptor. And sometimes it can be scary, students can say that I'm good at grammar, but I'm not good at task response. I'm not good at interaction. So thus they start to be a little bit scared. But once they have understood the meaning of the rubric and the importance of rubric and the help of the rubric, they will start to analyze themselves by using these band descriptors independently, autonomously. So there are basic steps to design rubrics. First, we need to identify a learning goal. As I told, we cannot create anything as a rubric. We cannot create anything as an assessment. So anyway, our assessment should match with our teaching and learning goal as well. So thus, we need to identify a learning goal. What are we going to assess? And we need to choose outcomes that may be measured with a rubric. So that means what our achievements, what achievements of our students will achieve when they finish this score or when they pass this assessment. And they will develop or adapt at the same time an existing rubric. So, the first step is they will share it with students, and we need to assess or grade at the same time. And we, again, at the end, as it's like a life circle, we need to analyze and report results, work on our shortcomings, and again to put into process. So we can say that assessment is on the process as our productive skills. It will never stop. We will work, analyze, and we will kind of go back and again improve and again put it into process. And in the following way, we will achieve better results or proficiency or perfectionism, we can say. And there are 2 types of rubrics, which is holistic rubrics and analytical rubrics. And right now I'm going to clarify the difference between holistic rubrics and analytical rubrics as well. So holistic rubrics, it's they provide a single score based on an overall impression of a student's performance on a task. And it's used to score students' work as a whole, yielding one holistic score. So, and when we use a holistic rubric, there is no correct answer or response to ask a task. For example, creative work. Thus, sometimes like writing and speaking is assessed by two examiners because both examiners will approach to their kind of candidate holistically, and the third one, or as a kind of overall assessment, the measurement between them will be taken into consideration. For example, one examiner will assess our work for 5, another examiner will assess the candidate's work for 6. So the between them 5.5 will be taken into consideration because they both approach it holistically while assessing. And the focus is on overall quality and the proficiency or understanding of a specific content or skills. So with this, I would like to say that usually they pay attention to the task response. So task response, could students manage with task or not? Okay, so if they could manage, of course, they may have some shortcomings on choosing the right lexics, for example, or choosing the right grammar, or they are lack of with complex or compound sentences in presenting their grammar. But anyway, they could manage, they could present their opinion about it. So that means they are able to think about the topic, but because of their lack of knowledge, they couldn't present perfect accuracy or fluency. But anyway, they could manage with the task. So that means they could develop it critically. They are able to think inside in English, and they are able to present what they think about it in English, of course. And thus they will take into consideration.
كيس في رتبة تلفون قسم بزيا نما جوناتين deyapti.
Shada Khan, I'm so sorry. Okay, and the assessment is summative, for example, at the end of the semester or major, and assessing significant numbers, for example, 150 students for portfolio. And so, this is an example of holistic rubric. As you see, it was mentioned like a one-band descriptor. For example, we would like to give a score from 0 to 5, and we will describe the descriptives of 0 to 5. What abilities can we kind of consider? For example, in all, as we know, there is no requirements, but in 5, we would like to see the demonstrations of a complete understanding of the problem. All requirements of task are included in responses. So, and now it's high time to speak about analytic it's high time to speak about analytical rubrics. So analytic rubrics provide specific feedback comparing to holistic feedback. So it's close to objective assessment at the same, we can say at the same time, because they take into consideration all specific details, starting from word amount or lexic, like a range of a student, finishing with the abilities of presenting wonderful ideas using their collaborative community building or creativity or critical thinking as well. So then it breaks the objective into components parts, and each portion is scored independently using a rating scale. So, and it will final score is made up of adding each component's parts. So here, we will bring in as an example like IELTS band descriptors and CFR band descriptors, because they take in every kind of steps of presenting or responding to their rubrics. So I can say that like a task response, comprehension, coherence, cohesion, grammar choice or lexical choice, fluency, and so on. So when to use analytical responses? It's like that is easy to use when several faculties are collectively assessing students' work. So that means like we have big amount of students or big amount of candidates, and but we have less amount of assessors. But in order to be clear with assessment and in order to match the assessors like assessment with this or that like a rubric, they create like a analytic rubric. And its outside will be examining rubric scores and profiles of specific strengths of it are desired here. Okay, and if we continue, there is an example of analytic rubric. As you see, like a rubric is divided like into pieces from horizontally and vertically, and it was described like the criteria from 1 to 4, and the abilities of students from beginning to exemplary is presented here, and score there is a place for scoring. So we may kind of think about like while assessing, we will take into consideration the match of students' work into each scale, which is given in a rubric, in an analytical scoring. And if you compare to holistic with analytic rubric, we may see the following. Holistic rubric provides a single score based on an overall impression. So anyway, we pay we pay attention to the word of holistic. So holistic anyway kind of comes from the word impression. Impression of a student's performance on a task. But analytic rubrics provide specific feedback along several dimensions. And the advantages of holistic rubric is quick scoring and provides overview of students' achievement. But the advantages of analytic rubric is more detailed feedback, scoring more consistent, and across students and graders. So that means like using analytic scoring gives like a gives more principle teachers to be exact or to prove their answers more clearly. So, or more statistical, I can say. And disadvantages of both. Holistic rubric doesn't provide detailed information. May be difficult to provide one overall score. But in analytical scoring, it's of course time consuming to score. So, and I think it's high time to give a score to the most interesting part of our PPT, of our webinar, where Ms. Khushnama will share assessment tools, online assessment tools. Khushnama, it's your turn.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Ms. Yokut. Ms. Yokut, can you quickly go back to the evaluation and assessment slide?
Okay.
That was all about assessment, but here I'm going to focus on evaluation as well. What are differences between assessment and evaluation? So, as I mentioned before, while assessing, yes, the purpose of assessment is to increase the quality of the learners. When we are designing our rubrics and when we are teaching our learners, sometimes we assessing them formative or by summative assessments in order to know whether we are on the right path, whether our learners getting or the well knowledge, or let's say whether we are teaching on the right way, whether we are achieving our goals and objective of our syllabus. So here, assessment gives us information when are we and how we can improve, you see. And but the task of evaluation, when we focus on evaluation, it is the purpose of it is to judge the quality. So evaluation is the process that critically examines any type of course or learner. It involves collecting and analyzing information about any kind of course, or let's say of our learners, or maybe activities, characteristics, outcomes, and it is let's say critically examines. When we evaluate anytime our learners, we are just critically examine them whether they achieve or not, whether what is the quality of their knowledge. And evaluation can be peer evaluation. Even your learners can evaluate you with the questionnaires or with some kind of the questions also. And the differences between assessment and evaluation, it has a very big difference between, there are lots of difference between them. So in assessment, do not forget, we are assessing our learners to know whether they achieve or whether we are achieving our goals or not. But in evaluation, we just judge them. And even when our learners evaluate themselves or self-evaluation, or when they evaluate us as a teacher, they are just they judge the quality of any course or learners. So that is all about here. Here you can see the clear picture of assessment and evaluation. So here you see when the teacher assessing her learners, teacher should know what is the problem with this learner. Even when the teacher providing with some feedbacks, the teacher should know what is the problem with the pupils, what kind of further tasks, or how can he or she differentiate the task for learners so that this learner also can achieve the goals. The assessment goals is that to know, to increase the quality, to know whether we are right or not. But when we evaluate them, or when our learners do the self-evaluation, they just judge themselves, like what did I know before the course, and what am I doing well in what terms, and what I get well, and what knowledge did I get. You see it here, they are evaluating, they are judging themselves. So going to the assessment tools, after the whole explanation of these assessment, evaluation, and the rubrics for assessment, here I'm going to inform with some new assessment tools. So here you can see there are millions of assessment tools on the internet, but yeah. But to talk about the Socratic assessment, it is one of the new types of assessment. It is like a platform. Here you can, it allows teachers to create simple quizzes that students can make quickly on laptop. And when once you are creating your quiz, or let's say multiple choice, here you can see it is possible to create quizzes and play games as space race games. And for multiple choice, it is also possible to make true false questions and short answer questions. All of these questions are available there to create. Once when you create your questions for your learners, you may share the code with them, and once when they just type the code of that you provided them, they can get an access to your questions and answer the questions anywhere, anytime, using their devices. So here the advantages of this Socratic assessment tool, they can get access anytime and anywhere, and also you can how to say, observe your learners while they are answering the questions. You can see the results of your learners, in what questions or in what types of questions they have some difficulties, so that to further to learn or to teach them and to work on their weaknesses. Remember, it is the assessment tool. The task of assessment is to increase the quality of your learning. So the next one, the next assessment tool, here you can see the yes, profs. It is like one of the assessment tools, and the advantages of this assessment tool is that you can create any types of questions, and you can do it like for it is very revolutionary new online assessment tool for create online assessment questions and any kind of questions for your learners. Here the very big benefit of this tool is you can not only just observe their scores, but also you can do the analytical or yes, the data analysis of your learners. What is the percentage of their knowledge, and what is the percentage of every single question. So this tool will let you to do some statistical analysis of your questions. So, and the next tool that I'm going to explain is the glider. Glider is that one of the powerful tools that help you to gather the abundance of assessment data. Here also you can get any kind of data. It is also like the previous assessment tools. You can create any kind of questions related to your topic, and your learners can get access to your questions, getting by providing the code for them, and they can answer the questions, and you can get any kind of data or information about the results of your learners. And here, this assessment tool, the one of the benefits of this assessment tool is you can give feedback for every single question that you provided to your learners. If they have some kind of mistakes or some kind of difficulties in any kind of questions, you can immediately go to the feedback, press on the feedback icon, and you can provide your learners with the feedback, and they can see it, and further they can learn and work on their weaknesses as well. So that is all about the assessment tools. And here you going further to activities for assessing, I want to say that there are some kind of assessing activities for learners that can help you to assess your learners and to know their level and their destination, and where they are, and how to work on their strength, and to identify their weaknesses and strengths. So this kind of activities, here you can see the ideas on collecting information, and these activities can provide you with the strategic use of questioning and giving feedback, providing feedback to your learners, introducing peer assessment also, and self-assessment as well. By using these kind of activities, you can make your learners to do peer assessment, to assess their partners, and also they can do self-assessment as well. So here you can see some kind of activities. Going further to the next slide, there are some kind of activities here we provided, like take it out. Here you can see they can communicate and talk it out, and they can communicate. Students can host their own talk show and discuss the important points of any lessons. Here it is very good opportunity, not only for your students but also for you to know whether the lesson was effective or informative to your learners. They can provide any kind of feedbacks for you and for the performance of their peers as well. So another type of activity that we are going to inform you, it is the four corners. This is a great way to encourage dynamic movement while learning multiple choice questions. So here your learners, they can move around the classroom, and they can just designed each corner of the classroom to represent A, B, or C answers, like in a multiple choice. Students go to the corner that they believe corresponds with the corner answers. Here, so when you are providing with some kind of questions, the students can go to the corner. For an example, one corner can be A, another B, C, and D. And when they choose the answers, they can go to the corner. And by this way, you can assess them and to understand whether they understand your instruction or the topic that you provide them. So another one activity is the number 3. Here you can see using a poster, including a tree with numbers each number consists a question. So it is like a formative assessment. So you can quickly ask them questions about your topic or theme that you explain it. And they can quickly answer to these questions, choosing any kind of any number they wish. And here also lets you to identify whether your learners are understanding you or not. So yes, that is the last activity, I guess, that I'm going to explain you. And yes, the one of them is also thumbs up, and you can find many kinds of these activities to do some assessment activities in internet, and one of them is check the class understanding of what you are teaching by asking them to show their thumbs here. It is one of the good ways. Sum up is understanding, and some thumbs halfway is the one understanding sum, and thumbs down is it means that they do not understand what you are explaining. So here also one of the like a tool of assessment, and the way of checking whether they understand or not. So that is the end of the giving information you or providing some information about assessment and evaluation, rubrics for them, and assessment tools and activities as well. If you have some kind of questions, you are welcome, dear participants.
Mr. Khushnama, first of all, thank you for giving information about valuable applications for assessing students online. And I wanted to ask, are these applications are available on the internet?
Yes.
And are they free to download?
They are available on the internet, and you can use them just by registration. Once you are registered with your Gmail, any kind of email, you can have an access to that kind of platforms. And but you know, the only thing that for free using, the questions are limited. If I'm not mistaken, just 15 questions. But if you want to make up more than 15, you have to pay for these platforms.
Clear, thank you.
So for profs, it's like usually it's free of charge, and but like the number of users like of your test or of quizzes can be limited. So it can be like limited with 1,000. I think 1,000 users are enough for us. Like once you have created your quiz with the help of profs, so that means you may use it with several groups. For Socrates, yes, as Ms. Khushnama said, there is a limitation on number of questions. And for, which one is? For Glider, that is like, as Ms. Khushnama mentioned, like this is like an interaction of real life tasks. So that means once you have created, once you have finished it, then while creating another type of assessment, you need to delete the previous one. So what is mentioned like real life tasks, for example, you are going just to take a real life, like giving real life atmosphere for your interview questioning. So that means you will give a question, so your students will be, and you will set of criteria of assessment. For example, you are going to pay attention for their dress code, or you are going to pay attention for their body language, like the most significant tools of assessing interview. Yes. So then it will be taken automatically into consideration. The most like significant part for or important part for teachers, like it will mark automatically. So that means it will ease our work. And all tools which are mentioned by Ms. Kushnamor is good because you may use them in any tool, like any online or digital tool, like Google Classroom or Zoom accounting or Scholar or Moodle per day or Kundalik, even if you are kind of a teacher from public education.
Miss Yokut, please unmute yourself.
Why didn't you mention about it?
You may continue.
Okay, all tools that I mentioned by Miss Hushnamo, yes, they are free of charge, but profs, I would like to say that gives like as an opportunity to ask up to 1,000 students once you have created like a profit. But Socrates, as it was mentioned by Ms. Hoshinama, it is limited with 15 questions. But why good profs is good, like comparing to Kahoot is game-based, but profs gives more options like quizzing, space racing, exit tickets, I think you know, like once you have finished your topic and you would like to check your students' understanding, and you will create like a 6 questions, like a starting 6 questions which matches with Bloom's taxonomy, which is starting from calling background knowledge, finishing with evaluation. So you will create questions, for example, what is your name? Yeah, and what names are your favorite, for example. So as you see, like there is a big difference between what is your name and what names are your favorite. Or what do you think? Are names play an important role in people's life? So here they need to analyze, think, and then they need to present their opinions or their ideas about it. So you will create such kind of 6 questions and then you will present it for your students. But one good thing is like it will check automatically. But one bad thing, you need to give approximate like answers for your question. So that means a computer will take like a compare the answers and they will give like an approximate band comparing the answers that you have created beforehand. The answers that you're accepting. For example, what is your name? You will say you're accepting. My name is blah blah blah. I am blah blah blah. Or just Yakut Sharipova. So there is a 3 options and computer will automatically take the measurement or the medium between them if they give different answers. And the next one is multiple choice, true, false, and short answer kind of type of question. And profs, I have already mentioned it. Nilufar, as you asked it, like, yes, that is unlimited. You may update if you're going to use it with with more than 1,000 students. But that is good. Like you may create like a scoring, personality, or you may use banks of questions, which is like a multiple choice, true, false, and so on. And so glider is good, like as it was mentioned with Miss Hushnava, it is real world tasks. For example, you are going to take for example, you are going to take to assess students' ability of interviewing or giving an interview, job interview, or and so on, any kind of interview. So you will create your questions and you will create assessment criteria. So while students' performance, you are going to take into consideration their dress code, their body language, for example, because they are really criteria of interviewing. So they will kind of site or kind of app will take into consideration automatically all criteria that you have set beforehand for your students. And in addition, I would like to say, like, all the things that we have presented are good, like for formative and summative assessment as well. But if we stress, like, to our daily assessment, it's usually difficult to create like app-based rubrics or just rubrics for each lesson. So we may kind of address easily to feedback. So what is feedback, if I'm not mistaken, is already provided with our peers. But in it, shortly saying, we may say that feedback is like a short comment on students' presentation. So students like task us by taking into consideration or by covering 3 things, like praising, showing like a specific shortcomings, and address them, like or instructing them to the right source, like it would be better if they work with this in order for their improvement and so on. So That is all for today, if I'm not mistaken. If you have more questions, you're welcome.
Thank you for participating.
If you don't have any questions, I think we could manage to give something for you. Thanks for participations, and we would like to see you in our further webinars or workshops. And you may see kind of recorded version of this webinar in our YouTube channel and in our Telegram channels as well. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.